Hey, this is Garrett in post-recording. Just listened back to the audio, realizing the mic on my headphones didn't work, so my voice will be coming from my phone. I apologize for the mishap, and I also forgot my hat. Regardless, enjoy.
The little kid at the big boy table. The adult table. Alright. Alright. Hello and welcome in, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Happy Easter to everybody out there. If you don't celebrate Easter, that's cool too. But my name is Garrett Shumake. This is the Shumake Take. This is Shumake Take Rants, episode 2. So for those of you that do not know, this is a segment. Or I shouldn't say segment, but this is a separate portion of the Shumake Take. Normally, the Shumake Take I just cover news, updates, that whole shebang. Shumake Take Rants is dedicated to specifically talking about and addressing controversies within the football landscape. And today, we got a good one for you. We're going to be talking about how loyalty is dead in college football. Move that back just a little bit. Yeah, loyalty is dead in college football. But before we start, it took me a little bit to gather the information to build this coherently. And I've realized something that Shumake Take Rants, while you think it's a rant, and the original plan was for it to be a rant. I was gonna just pretty much convey my opinion, completely unscripted about a certain topic. But I realized that, especially when it comes to this situation we're talking about today, there's a lot of intricacies about it. And if I just spouted my opinion of my uneducated opinion of, oh yeah, college football, NIL transfer portal's ruining college football. It's gonna ruin the game. And then, that'd be a disservice. And I'll just say this right now, that was not my opinion, straight up hot take, no. But at the same time, I didn't really think about and look into all the intricacies of it and what makes the NIL transfer portal, what makes them each good and bad. So I took the time to really put in a solid argument for why loyalty is dead, and not only talk about a problem, talk about a solution, and pretty much just educate people on what we're actually talking about here. And I may struggle talking a little bit because I'm stuffed. As weird as you say, but it's hard to talk when you're on a full stomach from having Easter dinner. My mother made the best baked ham, garlic roasted red potatoes, green beans, and fried apples, bro. It is some of the best food you've ever had in your life. If you ever meet me in person, you have to try my mother's homemade cooking. It's good. It's delicious. But we got to talk about college football and loyalty being dead. So when it comes to loyalty being dead in college football, we first have to talk about what does loyalty mean? Loyalty, when we think about loyalty, just involves commitment, staying true to one person or one thing, right? That's kind of the solid definition, or a very simplistic definition of what loyalty is. In the context of college football, it's the same thing. When it comes to college football, it's defined as players committing to a school and staying there for 3 or 4 years. And when it comes to coaches, it means going to a program, building up that program and get it to a spot where fans, the university, investors / stakeholders want it to be. You want to get the program to a spot where it's respectable, you're getting good players, and most importantly, you're winning. But with NIL and transfer portal, it's really kind of thrown a rift into what the traditional way of building, or just overall the traditional way of how college football works, has really thrown it for a loop. And now everyone's saying that loyalty is dead. And I would agree that yes, loyalty is dead in college football, but we have to talk about the NIL, we have to talk about the transfer portal, we have to talk about what they are, what makes them good, what makes them bad, and talks about some of the shortcomings in some of the regulations, or lack thereof. So getting into this, By the way, I always read off of a script because I'd rather, sound at least somewhat capable when I'm talking about topics, especially something as sensitive, not sensitive, but something as controversial like this. So when I'm trying to make an argument, I gotta make sure like I sound good. And more with time, like as I read the script, maybe I'll work on memorizing it more and memorizing it better. You won't see me reading stuff and looking at this as much, but for now, we're still rubbing off rust. We're getting there. So, the summary of the NIL and transfer portal, for at least from a fan's perspective, is that these factors are creating a situation where fans feel less connected to players and coaches. Players are on the outside looking in, no longer seen as developing alongside their classmates, but as short-term assets in win-at-all-cost games. And with coaches, they leave for a quick payday, and it shatters the illusion of stability and commitment with the program. And it's a complex issue, with some arguing that these changes empower athletes. However, there's no doubt that the landscape of college football loyalty is being reshaped. So we got to get into these two factors that are creating this rift. The transfer portal, and then we'll get into the NIL. So, the transfer portal. For those of you that don't know, although the majority of you listening probably do know, the transfer portal is a system that allows players to enter a database or portal where they leave their school and another school can recruit them. Before, players who wanted to transfer had to sit out for one season, which discouraged movement, among other things. But now that limitation has been lifted, so now players can just go wherever they want for whatever reason they want. When we're looking at the transfer portal's impact, the big one is that people say it's like NFL free agency. Before the portal, transferring often meant a year on the sidelines. Now, players can explore options freely. This creates a free agency atmosphere where players prioritize immediate playing time, championship aspirations, or better NIL deals over school loyalty. This leads fans to feeling disconnected from their players who might leave after a year or two, and also hinders the development of emotional attachment. The other impact is the coaching carousel. Head coaches, lured by bigger contracts or better situations, are no longer seen as pillars of stability, when they used to be, and they still should be considered a foundation of any program and the pillars of building the culture of that program. But now that coaches are leaving and they're taking bigger paydays, not that that's wrong, not that that's a bad thing, but because now that the foundational pieces of a program are moving around and switching around, this disrupts team culture and weakens the bond between coaches, players, and overall just creates instability in collegiate athletics and an athletic program. So when it comes to going into the transfer portal, you got to look at why players will transfer, because there's many good reasons for a player to transfer. So some of them might be, the biggest one is playing time. Because as a player, you want to fight, you want to fight hard, you work hard every day because you want your opportunity, you want to play, you want to start. And if you're at a school that's known for let's me think about this for a second. Let's say you go to let's say you're running back at Ohio State, and you're behind you're like the fourth string running back. Ohio State's known for generating good running backs and consistently generating NFL running backs. So if you're a fourth string running back and you have an opportunity to go to say I don't know, let's say USC. You have an opportunity to go to USC and you can be the starter, or at least compete to be the starter. You'd probably transfer there because that's your opportunity to really put all this hard work and put it to use and really showcase what you got. Another reason why, because of playing time, is also a lack of a skill set. An offensive lineman or defensive lineman that, for example, that might be used to a power run scheme might struggle in a more spread offense. Transferring to a program with a coaching philosophy that better suits their strengths can help unlock their potential. And that's another big thing too. For example, let's look at Joe Milton, the quarterback out of Tennessee. At Michigan runs a more pro-style offense. And for Joe Milton, that just didn't mesh well. He transferred to Tennessee, where head coach Josh Heupel, I can't remember how it's pronounced, but his offense is more of a spread offense. It's catered to help college quarterbacks. And with that, we could definitely say that he thrived I would say he thrived, like 100, like he was great, but he showed flashes of being a really good NFL quarterback potentially. If you want to know my evaluation of Joe Milton, you should go check episode 3, where I talk about my top quarterbacks of the NFL draft. But he definitely went to another team. He went to the University of Tennessee, where he played better than he would have if he had stayed at Michigan. And this has created an opportunity for him to be drafted into the NFL, where he could go into the 4th or 5th round, and there's an opportunity there for him, where he's more than likely going to be an average backup, but he has the opportunity to sit and potentially be a franchise quarterback if everything goes right. But that is highly unlikely. But we're not talking about Joe Milton here specifically. We're talking about how a player might not have a good scheme fit, so transferring to with one team, so transferring to a team that's better able to utilize their talent better, can help the football player's aspirations to make it into the league one day. The third reason why players would use the transfer portal is a winning culture. A player that has championship aspirations just might leave a rebuilding program for a perennial contender. And we see this all the time, not in just college football, we see it in the NFL as well. And the biggest form of recruiting, and always has and always will be, is your success as a program. Teams like Alabama and Georgia will constantly get the top recruits, will get the best of the best recruits, because not only are you getting the best coaching, but you're going into the winningest two of the top programs in college football that are always competing for championships. And if you're a player that wants to really compete and really wants to win, that's where you're going to go. Another thing too that people don't talk about is academic fit. Maybe you're going to like a Georgia or an Alabama or an Ohio State or even a smaller school like Northwestern, for example, and you're going there to play football, but as a college player, but you're in college, you still gotta go to class, you gotta do a major, and maybe they don't offer the major that you want or that you prefer. So you transfer to another college that has the major you want, or maybe offers like more deeper in-depth classes so you can further your learning. A lot of people forget, football players that play in college, they're also college students, just like me and just like other people that might be listening to this show. And a lot of people forget about that. So an academic fit is most certainly a good reason for a player to want to have to use the transfer portal. The next reason can simply just be personal reasons, whether it be family issues, injuries requiring a change of scenery, or you just want to be at home, or to be closer to home. Other stuff like that are other good reasons to transfer. I know that I had a friend who went here. They grew up in Minnesota, but they were here at USF my last semester, and they decided that they wanted to go back home and be closer to their family, and so that's what he did. And luckily for him, his credits were able to transfer properly, and it was all fine and dandy. But personal reasons are also one of those good reasons to use the transfer portal. And then lastly, NIL opportunities. I don't have to say much about that because we're going to get into NIL here in a little bit. But with the NIL, if you have the opportunity to make more money with another team, that's another reason why players would utilize the transfer portal and go somewhere else. So now, reasons why a player might stay put, why they might stay at their university and remain what people say is loyal. The first one is loyalty. Some players value the bonds they've built with their teammates and their coaches, and they want to see their commitment through. They want to grow with them. They want to fight every week with them, and they want to build their legacy at one school and keep everything consistent. Another reason could be playing time on the horizon. If you're a freshman or a sophomore and you have an upperclassman who started above you graduating, you're probably going to be the next in line to start. And if that's the case, why wouldn't you wait and get that opportunity there where you probably are going to get that job compared to going to the transfer portal where you don't know, where you could go and if you're going to compete or not. And going back to the academics, Academic progress is a thing as well. If you transfer, applies to anyone in college. When you transfer from one college to another, you have to make sure when you're transferring, because you're probably going to keep the same major. You have to make sure that all your classes and all your college credits that you've earned will transfer over properly. So that way you don't have to retake any classes or whatnot. And college is expensive, so any opportunity for you to not have to spend extra money on classes you've already taken, by all means. So definitely, like if you're at the school you want to play for and they offer the major you want, I wouldn't recommend transferring, because it's already hard enough academically to switch to another school. But if you run the risk of losing some of your credits not transferring and you having to be in college for longer than you initially wanted to, definitely it could be the smarter decision to stay at the university you started with. And along with that is scholarship security. A lot of players commit to a certain school and they're given a scholarship to play. If you transfer, that guaranteed source of being paid to go to school isn't there anymore, which means you might have to compete for a scholarship at a new program. And that inconsistency can make it a headache for a lot of athletes. Another thing, kind of like with personal reasons here, is just comfort and familiarity. Once you get to a certain point where you're with that program for a while, it begins to feel like a second home to you. And we talked about building the bonds with your teammates and your coaches. That's a place you want to be in. It's a place where just you grow to love it and you want to just stay there. Along with that is the fear of the unknown. The transfer portal, whether for better or for worse, whether you think it's good or whether you think it's bad, it's a gamble. It is a huge gamble on your career because there's no guarantee of success or even getting playing time with the new program. And ultimately, the decision to transfer is a personal one for players, and it weighs the potential benefits against the risks and the value of staying put. Now, with the transfer portal, there's good and there's bad. Just like everything in this world, there is good and there's bad. The first good reason and the biggest one, is player empowerment. Now, athletes can seek better opportunities if they're unhappy with the situation they're in for whatever reason, and now they can go to a new program. And this gives them control over their own destiny, practically. And so as you get to know me over the course of watching the show, I'm a huge believer in freedom. I love freedom. Freedom is a right of all human beings in almost any form possible. And giving players the power of choice in where they want to go and helping them make the decision that they think is best for their careers, by all means, give players that freedom. They deserve that. They create so much money for schools. They work so hard to get to where they want to be. They work so hard to get to the NFL one day and become a star. They put a lot of time and effort into what they do in playing football. So universities should at least give them the opportunity to go somewhere where they think it's going to best suit them for their career and for their life going forward in the future. The second one is that talented players that might be at under-recruited schools, that might be at a smaller school, they have the ability to transfer to a bigger school that can really showcase their abilities and help them get better noticed. I'm trying to think of like a prime example of a player that went to like a smaller school and then blew up. I'm thinking, give me a second to run through it. There's so many that are like on the tip of my tongue. I'm trying to think. Oh, Cameron Ward. He was at Washington State last year and he transferred to Miami. Well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Miami's a good football program by any means right now, but the University of Miami is way more notable than Washington State. So Cam Ward decided to transfer to a school that's bigger, has more notoriety, and if he continues to play like he did in 2023, he'll probably get more attention and will be able to go into the 2024 draft with a higher draft stock. The next thing on this list is coaching accountability. Knowing players can leave more easily, this might incentivize coaches to really work harder to create a positive team environment and really prioritize player development and overall just building that program, building the culture forward as well. While this was kind of like a lesser good, because it's not really, meh. It's not, if you put them on a totem pole, you put this one near the bottom. But it's still a factor that comes in play. Because the pressure is on more to really do a good job and build a program. Because if you're getting good recruits and you don't do a good job of building up the program like you envision and how it should be, those good players are going to be gone. So you really got to work hard and really sell that you're trying to build something great and sell it to the kids that you want them to be a part of it and make them want to be a part of it, if that makes sense. The next reason is just a fresh start. Players that are struggling to fit in the scheme like we talked about or dealing with personal issues, can you find a more suitable program for whatever reason that might be that can help revive their careers? And to summarize, the best thing here is that with the transfer portal, is that players have the right to choose. They have the right to make the decision that they think is best for themselves and best for their careers. And now they have more power in deciding how that happens. Whether that means they stay at their college or they or they transfer to another university. Now players are more in power, and that is a good thing. That is objectively a good thing, despite the cons, which we'll get to in a minute. The one thing that transfer portal supporters can really hang their hat on is the fact that players have more power to choose what they do with their careers more than ever. And I can't say enough how much that is a good thing. But we got to get into the cons now. Let me find it. Ooh. Here we go. Okay, it just wasn't space there. Interesting. Okay, so we got to get into the cons. The biggest con for me is roster fluctuation. When players are constantly graduating, going to the pros, or maybe not even going to the pros, just graduating from the university. They're there for 3 or 4 years, and then after that time, they got to find a player to fill this void that was left by the previous guy. And you have to recruit players. You have to bring them in. You got to bring in players from the transfer portal. In short, college football is a constant fluctuation of players, and the roster is always changing. It's not like the NFL where you might have the majority of your players all together for at least 4 or 5 years. You know, multiple players are leaving left and right, and there's always trying to find new players to fill in holes that were left by the previous guys, like I just mentioned. And with the transfer portal, this makes that fluctuation that much more increased. And overall, this makes, building a team chemistry and building a cohesive unit, it makes it that much harder to make that happen. Because players are already constantly leaving as is, graduating, going to the pros, and you already got to fill in those spots. But now you got other players that want to go to another school, and then you got players that were from another school that want to come to your school, and you have to work all that around, and ultimately, by the start of September, have a roster ready to go that's ready to win games and compete. And for some schools, that's just a little too much, because whether it be a lack of funding or whatnot, the transfer portal has made it more difficult to really build a roster to a program's liking. And for programs that are under the radar, it makes it harder for them to build up their roster and really build their program. But even for programs that are super successful, like Alabama and Georgia, it makes it that much harder to get their guys to stay and continue their prolonged success. So overall, it does hurt roster building and program construction in that regard. The second one has to do with the fans. Because as fans, we have emotional connections with players. We have emotional attachment to players. Whether that be in college or even the pros, no matter the sport. And fans will always have attachment to certain players. And with players staying 1 or 2 years and leaving, that hurts the fan experience. That hurts the fans' ability to connect with these players because they're only going to be here for a short time. So it makes fans question, is it really worth being loyal to the players? obviously most fans of college football are loyal to the team first, and then players come and go, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy was fun to watch for a while, then he left. When you think about like Florida with Kyle Pitts, he was loved, and then every Florida Gators fans past Kyle Pitts, or Tennessee fans past Peyton, since Peyton Manning's gone, for example, like they're still fans of the team. It's not like because the player left they're no longer fans, but it does hurt the fan experience a little bit. It does have a negative impact. And the third reason we talked about it a little bit earlier was free agency mentality. The portal can now encourage a win now approach, prioritizing immediate success over long-term development. And this means players might jump ship for a slightly better situation if it means they're going to win instead of staying loyal to their school. Now, when I say that staying loyal to their school, I know it sounds like in the context I'm saying it like, oh, they're not being loyal because they want to win more. No, because while it's not being loyal by the definition, they're still trying to go to a better situation where they can win. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm shaming a player for going to another situation to win instead of staying loyal to a program that may not be as winning or as successful. Just wanted to clear that up really fast. Is this the fourth reason? Yeah, the fourth reason. We already talked about this one too. The coaching carousel. If coaches can leave programs for more easily, it weakens that program's stability, and it hurts fan loyalty as well, because there may not be a stable coach in there or a stable person to really build this program and culture. That might mean that your team is going to be bad for a while, and while these fans will still be fans, because college football fans are a lot more diehard and loyal to their team compared to NFL fans, who are like 75% bandwagoners. It feels like, but it still does hurt fan loyalty, because if you're a fan of a bad team and they're not winning games, do you really want to? Does it make you tune in every game, watch them, and then be involved with every single news that drops about them? No. I mean, it hurt. My brain blanked. But like I said, it hurts the fan loyalty. It does hurt fans. Like it does. It hurts their ability to have emotional attachment with players. And if you have a bad program and you don't have the right head coach to really build your program, people aren't going to attend as many games. People aren't going to tune in. People aren't going to be as concerned. Well, yeah, they'll still say, yeah, I'm a fan of blah, 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 blah. It's not like they're going to say, like, oh, yeah, I'm a fan of this. We're the best team. Like, it's not the same energy. And the last reason for the transfer portal, or the con of a transfer portal, is recruiting uncertainty. Schools might be hesitant to invest heavily in recruiting high schoolers, knowing that they could transfer quickly. And for smaller programs, this poses a huge disadvantage. Because look at the quarterback, I think his name is Dylan Raiola. I think the top quarterback prospect going into of this year, he committed to like Ohio State or some big school, and out of nowhere he flipped to go to Nebraska, which is a smaller school. And so now Nebraska, they have their guy. They have a guy who has enough talent to be able to turn that program around potentially, if it's done right. But the thing is, I'll tell you this right now, if it's not done right and Nebraska's bad in 2 years, he's more than likely going to transfer out and go to a bigger school. And that's sad. Because smaller programs, I mean, the only thing they can hang their hat on is, hey, we're trying to build something here. If you stick with us, you see it through, you're going to be proud that you did. And while that does sell some players, it doesn't sell all of them. And for the players that they do sell, if they can't deliver for whatever reason that may be, those players you work so hard to get into the building and to convince, they're gone. And the transfer portal makes that much harder in that regard for bad programs to really build them up. So in summary, while it seems like the transfer portal. Well, not seems like. While the transfer portal does help players, it does hurt college football. It does seem that it's hurting college football programs, hurting the fan bases, and hurting smaller schools in a negative way. They're hurting something in a negative way. That makes so much sense. But yeah, the transfer portal is negatively affecting smaller schools, passionate fan bases, and the structure and stability of football programs in general. But now we got to move to NIL, or name, image, and likeness. So if you don't know, which I gotta say this again, most of you probably do if you're listening to the show, NIL allows players to profit from their name, image, and likeness. And while it's a positive development for athletes, it can also be a factor in recruiting and transferring. Top recruits might be swayed by schools that can offer more opportunities, and players might look to transfer to programs that can offer them a bigger slice of the NIL pie. This commercializes what used to be seen as a pure form of competition. And that's something people talk about too. When fans talk about NIL, they talk about the corporatization of college football, right? Turning it into a business instead of a college kid playing football with aspirations to go to the NFL. It feels different. And when you mix this with the free agency feeling of the transfer portal, this is why so many fans believe that it's the wild, wild west. Because anything and everything can happen right now. There's no regulations for it, which we'll get to later near the end. And so, just like on the surface level, and we'll elaborate more later, that's where the fans' concern is coming from. Because players are incentivized to go to another school for another situation, which also includes being able to make more money. But we got to talk about some of the impacts more specifically with NIL. Of course, the biggest one, NIL allows players to profit from endorsements, appearances, and social media. This is good. This is what they deserve. College football players deserve to make money for the billions of dollars in revenue they generate for their schools. And while it offers financial opportunities for them, it does raise ethical concerns about pay-for-play recruiting. Because bigger schools have more money, they can go to a player and say, hey, we can give you more money and more opportunity to make more money if you play with us. So players just might be more inclined to go there because of the financial opportunity. Oh my goodness, my throat is so dry. I apologize. The thing is, I got through it fine, the first episode or two without drinking water, and I made it through it fine, but now that I have water, feels like my throat dries out faster. It's weird. Very, very weird. But ultimately, with the pay-for-play argument, it widens the gap further widens the gap between the top programs in the nation to the smaller ones. And adding on to more of the financial opportunity, NIL is simply, whether we think it's good or not, the focus is marketability. Recruiting strategies might prioritize a player's marketability over pure athletic ability. This could disadvantage talented players who aren't social media stars, which could also diminish the on-field product. That's another issue as well. But like everything else, there is good and there's bad. The good, the biggest one, talked about it just a second ago. College athletes generate billions for their schools, but now they can earn their share. They can profit from that now, which is really good. It's really, really good. And this creates financial opportunities for players. They can provide financial security for athletes. They can help them cover other expenses. They can help support their families, and also help them prepare for a future beyond sports. Along with a future beyond sports, this allows athletes to build their personal brands and explore entrepreneurial opportunities, which are valuable skills for their post-playing careers. So when it's all said and done, it can help them build skills and build a profile for them to be able to start their own business or be able to work somewhere and have a good life outside of playing football. Oh, I just opened up my keyboard. Whoops. And lastly, there is an increased motivation here. The ability to profit from their talents can incentivize athletes to train harder and perform better. Because the better and more notable you are, the more likely you could go to a big school and you could get paid more money. But we have to talk about the bad as well. And the big one is the uneven playing field that NIL is creating. Schools with deeper pockets simply can offer more lucrative NIL deals, which can potentially widen the gap between the powerhouses and the smaller programs when it comes to recruiting top talent. And then talking about the marketability, recruiting strategies might prioritize a player's social media presence and marketability over pure athletic ability, like we just mentioned, which can marginalize less trendy but talented athletes. And of course, we talked about pay to play already. It can blur the lines of amateurism, and booster clubs or wealthy alumni might use NIL deals to essentially buy players, which raises a ton of ethical concerns. And the big one is an exploitation risk. Young athletes might be vulnerable to unfair contracts or exploitation by bad agents or sponsors. And that goes into the NCAA having a lack of regulation on the matter. But now we discussed the transfer portal, we've discussed the NIL, what their impact is right now, the good and the bad. So now when it comes into context, let's circle it back together. In the future of loyalty, so when it talks about in the context of loyalty and its future, the concept of loyalty in college football just might have to be redefined. Perhaps it will shift from a blind allegiance to a school to a more player-centric approach, where fans follow their favorite athletes across programs. While I find that highly unlikely, over the next maybe 20 years, we might start to see a shift of that. Because players and programs are changing ever so frequently, because there's no stability and consistency, it might be easier for fans just to move with the flow of the river. If this is what the river's doing, why would you try and fight the current, right? That's definitely a possibility. Although I believe, like I said, this might happen in about 20 years or so, give or take. It's not going to happen overnight, and all of a sudden no one's a fan of any college football team. They're only fans of players now. But it is important to note that given everything that's happening, we're still all trying to understand and still trying to figure out the transfer portal and NIL's place in college football. The long-term effects are still unknown, and who knows what will come from that. Will conferences implement stricter regulations? Or maybe the NCAA will impose school-wide or nationwide regulations. As of right now, only time will tell of how these changes will ultimately shape the landscape of college football as a whole, not just loyalty, but as a whole. But there are some potential solutions so we can balance getting the best out of college, out of the transfer portal, getting the best out of the NIL, without fans feeling like the loyalty of the game is dying and players are being more corporatized than ever before. With the transfer portal, some solutions that I've seen people come to mind, and some that I personally agree with, one of them is a transfer window, limiting transfer windows of how often a player could transfer could help promote team stability, but also really make the decision to transfer that much bigger of a decision. And it is a big decision. But some players have been able to transfer 2 or even 3 times, and it definitely should be a decision where do you really want to transfer and go here and take that gamble, or do you want to stay at your school? And it definitely should I believe that, like I said, there should be less transfer windows, so it helps make that decision. It makes that decision that much more important. And along with simple regulations like stricter eligibility requirements to prevent players from hopping around too frequently. Man, what the heck is this? This is all thrown all the way around. Okay, so I guess those are the 2 reasons I have down on paper. I apologize. I thought there was more. But with the NIL, the big thing with NIL is standardization. Having uniform NIL rules across all conferences, it could help create a fair recruiting landscape. Maybe like a cap on how much money you could offer, for example. Maybe that's a thought. And whether this all ultimately benefits athletes or coaches and fans, it remains to be seen. But another thing is financial literacy education. Equipping athletes with financial literacy skills can help them make more informed decisions about NIL deals and manage their earnings more effectively. That's something I think could really help benefit college athletes so they don't get caught in maybe a bad sponsor, or they get exploited and they might lose a whole bunch of their money with a bad contract or something like that. And another thing that I think the NCAA could do a better job at is helping keep an emphasis on education. NIL this is something I'm sure we can all agree on, NIL shouldn't overshadow the academic pursuits of student athletes. Because ultimately, whether you're there to play football or play another kind of sport or do anything else, you're still there to go to class and get your major, get your credits, and ultimately get a degree and graduate. If you go to college, that's the penultimate goal. And football and any other sports should be treated as, are still technically an extracurricular activity. And NIL and the opportunity to make more money with your sport definitely should not overtake the fact that you're still in college and you're still trying to get a degree. And ultimately, we have to accept that NIL right now is a work in progress. It has the potential to greatly benefit athletes, and it already has, not probably. But navigating the complexities will require ongoing adjustments and strong regulations to ensure fairness in a healthy college sports environment. So, that's like everything. That's the NIL, the transfer portal, the good, the bad, the impact, and what the current state of college football is right now, and what the future is like. My opinion on it, personally, is that it's good. Let me restart that. The benefits that the transfer portal and NIL can bring to players is really good. It gives players the right to choose over where they want to go. It gives them more freedom, which we already talked about. I love freedom, but also gives them the ability to profit from their efforts and all the money that they generate for the universities that they play for. The problem I have with it is that there's no regulations. It feels like there's just not that much that really. It allows for a lot of corruption within these two processes. And I talked about this earlier. That's where a lot of people are saying college football is like the wild, wild west now. Because these new rules, players are making money, they're moving all over the place, and there's seemingly no regulations in place that can benefit the universities, benefit the programs, and benefit the fans. And I'm not going to be the one that says, college football is dying, and within 5 years it's going to be dead. No, let's not over-exaggerate. But we do have to acknowledge that if we don't have any more strict regulations, or we don't add, or the NCAA doesn't add any regulations that can help combat these issues with the NIL and the transfer portal, that we could see a decline of the quality of college football. And that's something that's probably not gonna. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's gonna take years of no regulations for that to happen. But it's definitely a possibility if the NCAA doesn't step in and take it under control. And ultimately, no matter whether you're for it or you're strictly against it, we're all fans of college football. We want the best for our teams. And we should want the best for the players that play the game as well, because they're the ones that make it so enjoyable. And of course, we're not going to get the very best of both worlds and eliminate all the bad parts. There's some stuff that's just going to have to stay. But with strict regulations and the NCAA, putting their foot down on certain things and make sure all parties can benefit, then we can really have a system where college football can really grow into something bigger than it's ever been, and really allow players to go to the best situations they can, fans can still remain loyal, and programs can continue to build, and the ones that are successful can continue to stay successful. And I think that's what ultimately everybody wants. But that's it. That is the rant on loyalty being dead in college football. Ultimately, loyalty is dying by definition. But at the same time, I talked about it in my first rant. We shouldn't be shaming players for doing what they think is best for themselves. And while it doesn't come off as being loyal, at the same time, we probably do the same thing at our jobs. Once we got a better opportunity to make more money or better our careers, we'd do the same thing. So while on the surface, yes, loyalty is dying, at the same time, players are just doing what us adults are doing as well. And that's that is episode 2 of Shumake Take Rants, talking about NIL and the transfer portal and everything in between. But that is going to do it for me. Once I want to tell you guys again, Happy Easter. If you don't celebrate Easter, that's fun too. That's cool too. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I will see you in the next one.